good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. I hope you guys are doing well, and I hope you guys have seen Invincible on Amazon Prime. Not sponsored. Not sponsored. It's a really dope show. Dope enough for me to want to do. I think I ended up doing two characters from the show. Adam Eve, which we're doing here, ended up being the one that I took the furthest. I don't think the other one went very well. I didn't like how it turned out, but with Eve, we went through several iterations for several fucking things. Most importantly and notably is the suit. So for the suit and basically for the entire project, I kind of started with a female base model and duplicating it and kind of deleting away certain things like arms and legs and the head left me with this bodysuit kind of shape. So I kept doing that. I did that for every iteration of the suit. This is the one we ended up using in the end, but I did it for the boots. Basically just duplicated the model and deleted everything but this part of the legs, and then brought it into Zbrush here and just kind of worked them from being feet to just being boots. So I think inside of Blender we had to get rid of the toes and just do more of a boot looking, and I have no idea what the fuck that means, but you know what I mean. I did it for the gloves as well, and then I have this piece that I ended up calling the shawl. It doesn't work too well with this model, but I'm not sure where I got this thing from or why I don't have lower subdivisions of it. It's just this really dense piece of geometry that has these really nasty edges that I kind of just hid them away. I just hid them away in the actual torso. But there we have it. This is the fully sculpted suit. Everything else was touched up a little bit. I didn't want to do too much on the hands. But I think the boots got the least of my attention, obviously. And then we have the character model herself. You'll notice some definition on the arms specifically that aren't in the final renders. Things like this bicep definition and the elbow, and I tried to fix that. I tried to come in here. It turns out there was so much more that was wrong. Her elbow and the elbow pit, if that's what it's called, I'm not sure. They were all misaligned. Like her elbow was like down here, so you had like this diagonal thing going on. This inside bit was like way out here, so you'd have like this mean like bump. So I went in here and fixed that, added some definition, and I tried to bake it out. And even though in theory it should have worked, for some reason my efforts just fell flat on their face. But it's in here now. I've corrected it, so at least I can tell myself that I did that at least. That I caught it and I fixed it to an extent. To an extent. But yeah, basically I took the cutout shapes, sculpted them, and then from here it was just a matter of exporting these out into Blender. Inside of Blender, these dense or high poly models tend to not do very well here. So luckily, we don't really mess with them inside of here. We just kind of use them to almost trace the silhouette that they provide, and eventually we will gather the detail that was sculpted. But the cape was not, I don't think I sculpted anything for the cape. Either that or I sculpted it here in Blender. I'm still not too familiar with it, but I mean, sculpting the cape here wasn't all that bad. But then again, it's nothing to write home about. It's just a simple cape. It's just a simple cape. But that's all I needed. That's all I needed. Other things that I didn't need to sculpt or have a high poly for, like this awful scalp, ignore that, let's just hide that. The hair did not need to be sculpted, so although it does have its own ridiculous density that if I really wanted to, I could bring that down. It's not all that worth it, so for now it stays as is. And then things that I would later add, like this little guy, it's a little atom. I don't know, I saw a reference or like this fan art of someone that had added like this enlarged atom that she had created, so I thought that was pretty cool. In Blender, let's go into the hair a little bit. This is exactly the same hairstyle that was just orange, used with the other model. But what we're looking at here is its nerves. These are how we create or kind of groom these hair strands. If you guys hang out on the Twitch streams, you guys have seen me do this a few times. But basically we have these control points that if we select them and just hit G to move them, we can move these around and kind of groom and style the hair. And they're all individual strands, so we can go to one and select it and manipulate it individually. It's pretty cool. And what's even cooler is it's all being generated by these two items here. So this is the pattern that I've created for the strands, and this is the path that it's tied to. And you can see the path is taking on the shape of our little, shape there. So with this, we can just duplicate this guy, tab into its control, start selecting its control points, and start creating something that looks similar to our hair strands over there. So basically, you'll just go and duplicate this guy a bunch of times, or once you have one that kind of has a form that the rest can follow, you could just duplicate it so you don't have to start from basically a straight bar every single time. And what's really cool about this thing is if we select our shape, tab into edit mode, this has its own control points that we can move and manipulate even still. And you can see down here it's actually still affecting the path. And if I give you a better angle, you can see it's affecting the path and everything that was created from it. So every hair strand over there is also adjusting and adapting. Pretty cool. It's like the Night King in some ways. I wonder if I delete this, if the world just falls apart. So once the modeling is quote unquote done, textures are done, lighting is done, you've done a few render passes, you're liking what your cameras are doing, that's usually when I start to pose the character and make adjustments afterwards. So I basically took our old model Adam, took this into Zbrush because Zbrush has really cool transpose features. Once again, I do this quite often when sculpting on stream, so if you've seen this on stream, I apologize for the repeated content. But let's say I wanted to move her arm. Now, be warned, it's not going to move the shoulder part of the suit or bicep, and it's not going to move the glove, but it's going to move her arm. So using the transpose and masking parts that I don't want to move so that I can move, or rotate parts that I do want to move, is basically the quickest way for me to pose characters, to basically get an idea or as close as I can to the pose, because it's not going to come out perfect or great the first time. And sometimes no matter what you do, there's only so much you can do with the transpose tools, especially because even though this model is made up of different pieces, when I export to Zbrush, I have to export a unified, if you will, model where all of these things are just one solid mesh, and I export it out that way. And if I have to bend the arm and let's say the glove starts going into the arm, there's no good way for me to select just the glove to pull it out of the arm if they're all just one solid mesh. Right now I could. Right now I can adjust this glove however I wanted to without affecting the arm at all. It's not the same when they're all just one solid subtool, which is basically what I would need to pose it effectively and quickly inside of ZBrush. So after it's posed in ZBrush, I bring it back into Blender and I just fix anything that's crashed or anything that's clashing, anything that's poking out or sinking in. Just basically clean up the pose inside of Blender and we're ready to export. Here we are in Substance, about I'd say about 90% of the texturing was done in Substance. The other bit was probably Photoshop. I've been through this before, so I'll quickly go through it. But I use the same method for skin that I did with Emily's character. So it depends on, or it relies on these shades, these blues and reds and this orange. I don't know, it looks orange to me. It could be a completely different color. I'm a little colorblind, but we have these harsh shapes that we tone down, and then we hit it with this blur. Tone down, hit with this blur, and you can kind of blend with it and mess with it too, to get these different skin tones. So first we'll bring out the full opacity, turn off the blur, and basically this is how it starts. I just go making these lines where I feel, or these markings where I feel I need them. Then I turn them down, then we blur them out a little bit, and from here you just kind of play with it. You don't want to make them like super yellow or blue or red anything, but it just kind of helps it not look so flat. Other color details would be things like the freckles, that I'm basically using dirt maps or kind of just noise maps to kind of help generate these random dots. So I have a layer that has them as more larger dots, and then they're a little more spread out. Then I have these more condensed, smaller ones. And then obviously those you also kind of blend and turn down the opacity for. And then we have the skin materials, the presets that come with Substance. Just kind of apply those wherever you can. Cheeks, eyebrows, forehead. There's several things, but the one that covers most of the body, I would say the one that I use at least, would be the human back skin. It's kind of more of just like a bumpy skin. It's kind of turned down, but if I were to select it, change the layer to show me height information, you can see it's been brought down, or all of them have been brought down from like 100 to 8 or 3 or 5. But if I turn this up, she is getting some mad tingles. Let's put that back down to 8. You can use the scroll wheel, or you can just type the value manually. Okay, let's get to the suit. So a lot of masking was used to create the detail of our suit here. One thing I really wanted to implement was this kind of a hexagon pattern here, and yeah, I kind of went crazy with it. Except down here, I kind of used like a different material. By the time I got here, I realized I had used this material quite a bit, so I kind of wanted something else that was just as cool but not exactly the same, and ended up with that look. There's a lot of different materials going on here. One that I completely kind of just found as like a happy accident was this very like shiny or latexy leather here. I guess I kind of just like the harsh contrast that it has with the rest of the suit. I mean, we go from like a regular type of fabric, to like this weird hexagon-y superhero fabric, but it's nowhere near as harsh as this transition. But I kind of liked it, and it played around with the curvature map pretty well. And then this thing was another happy accident. I don't like what it does to our symbol for whatever reason. All I did was paint the top layer here, this guy, this part. I don't know why we're getting a reflection. I get that this is a glass material, but I didn't think it would actually generate a reflection, and not one so opaque. Like, what is that? It kind of throws the whole symbol off, but we have that going. But this material is what do they call it? The glass visor material. Okay, here we go, glass visor. So without that, we can actually kind of bring this down to a more chill level. I don't know why we have this weird divide there, but that's how the symbol would actually look, which I kind of dig. I kind of want to create an alternate version where I use a more normal, for lack of a better word, more normal material instead of this glass visor. But I kind of liked the way it looked. This, once again, it's this contrast of like, we have like this plum color, this dark purple, and then we just get hit with like this blue and pink. It's pretty cool. It's translucent and shiny. It's pretty cool. I like it. I made it the thing that held the cape. But that was just a happy accident. I just remembered that it was a thing, that we had it as, I believe, a smart material. I could be wrong. No, it's right here, glass visor. I used it a few times a long time ago, but I just threw it on there, changed a couple settings, and yeah, it was pretty dope. I kept it. I just decided to keep it. So once we are done with Substance Painter, the goal is to bake out texture maps that we can then start applying to our materials, whether it's inside of an application like Marmoset or a game engine like Unreal or Unity, and so on. So these are our materials. It's a collection of textures, which are just square images, sometimes containing color info, like this, and sometimes a black, white, or gray value, in this case to control the roughness, this black value to control the metalness. This is for the hair. Even though I have cranked up the metalness a little bit just to make her hair just a little shinier. But let me show you how these work. So, like I said, they are square images that sometimes make sense and sometimes don't. Like this you can tell it's an eye. This is the emissive for the eye. I used literally the exact same image. I just selected the green values and hid everything else, and then just intensified them to create my emissive texture. And this is what is going to help me make the eyes glow. I don't overdo it, but I did make it glow a little bit. So sometimes it makes sense, because sometimes the UV layouts are pretty simple, and sometimes it just doesn't make sense. Like, you can't, if it wasn't for the naming convention, I would have no idea what this is. But this is the old suit. That is the old suit. This is the color for it. The color for it. This is the updated version. Here you can kind of tell. This is the front, the back. All the weird stretchy stuff in between them is just negative space that just got filled with that. So don't expect to see all that nonsense in there. But I wanted to do something real quick. Actually, let's not. Okay. So to get the suit looking like its normal self, let's work with this default material that currently has no textures in its slots. Let's go ahead and activate some others as well, like an emissive and occlusion. I don't believe we have transparency. We do not. Okay. So over here on my other monitor, I have my textures. I like to leave them in list view or detail view, just so I can easily identify which ones are the ones I need. But as you can see, they are just the square images. Here's the one we were just looking at. So I'll start plugging these in, and then you'll see how they start to influence the model. So first we'll grab the normal map, and I'll show you. I guess I'll bring them up before I plug them in. But you can, once again, you can tell where the front of the suit is, the back. I believe these are the legs, arms, and so on. Once again, we do have this very stretched, fucked up negative space. We ignore that. That does not apply to anything. So we'll plug that into the normal map, and you can already see it affecting the model. That's where we get all the height that we sculpted. So you can see the stress marks of the fabric. But it also contains the height information that we got from substance. So the small microfibers of the material, the superhero hexagon pattern thing going on, and all of our divisions and stitches that we can't really see just yet, but they are there. Next, let's get the albedo, or the color. And this is the one that we were looking at, and now it starts to look better. But you can see the roughness and the metal values are way out of control. But luckily roughness is next. We grab the roughness value, and now the roughness parameters that we set in substance have now taken effect, and it looks a lot better. That leathery part looks a little too shiny here. Maybe that's something to tone down in the future. Things are falling apart. Let's go to the metalness. Metalness didn't do too much, although it is pretty busy. It does look pretty busy for something that didn't affect too much. Odd. But if you can remember, we have the front here, back here, and those are pretty black. Black means that there is no value, or in this case metalness value there. There's an absolute white value here. I'm not sure which part I intended to be completely metal on here, but we'll move on. I don't see anything that's completely metal. Ooh, next we got the emissive, which the suit has an emissive. Oh, it does. It does have an emissive. Here we go. And here we can adjust that. Not seeing that all too well here. It's not that powerful, but you can see it kind of taking effect there. I wonder that if it's because of how dark the color was. Interesting, but there is the emissive. The occlusion beeth next. I'm sorry, I forgot to show these before I plug them in. Oh, these things, the shawl, that's completely metallic. Okay, interesting. Let's plug in the occlusion. Sometimes if we change the value here, we can get better results, but it doesn't seem to be doing too much here. Interesting. Something might be broken. There you have it. And as long as you keep the same naming convention, every time you update any of these maps, like if I wanted to go in and kind of chill out this white value here for the shawl, I could always go back into substance, tone it down, replace the file in here that we just opened up, and once it's replaced in this folder, Marmoset remembers where it's from. It's almost like it stays linked, and it automatically updates in here. It's really cool. It does it with the models as well. But after that, it's time to render. If we turn on ray tracing, the world might blow up, or it might not change much at all. For certain projects, I prefer to stay away from ray tracing, but sometimes it does do some really cool things. You can see as I'm turning it off and on, the biggest change is the brightness that happens around her torso. I mean, I kind of like how much light we catch here from there's a light down here for the booster things, but they also themselves, the materials, have an emissive. So we're seeing light already here with it off, but everything just gets a little bit brighter. I don't know, it's always a matter of taste with ray tracing and just how well it looks. Sometimes it really ruins things and makes like really harsh shadows, and it's terrible. It's fucking terrible. But to render things out, I select the camera that I want. We can go ahead and take off Eve power. We are on Adam_2. So I set that camera on. I can usually hide these things. There's the Marmoset watermark if you want it. Don't know why you would, but there it is. And we can export out images or videos, set the resolution, set the sampling, all that good stuff. Transparency. It's a pretty cool thing. But is going to do it for today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for hanging out. And I'll see you guys next time. Later, everyone.